Well, everybody's talking about defense going in the first round, whether it's defensive line, tackle, or edge, or safety. Courtney Cronin is just now throwing a curveball to say that maybe the Chicago Bears actually go tackle in the first round. Do I agree? Do I disagree? We'll talk a little bit about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the player that was called the #1 target for the Chicago Bears in the draft. All that plus the mailbag and more right after this. What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And listen, I know I spark a lot of conversation up when I talk about the Bears not going defensive line with number pick 25. There are a lot of y'all that are still in denial that the Bears could go any position other than defensive line, and that's perfectly fine. We'll see how it all shakes out once the NFL draft happens. But ESPN Bears insider Courtney Cronin actually threw out another position out there that the Bears could go at in round one, which I think is a little bit far-fetched, but she did say this. Depending on how many edge rushers are off the board by the time Chicago picks at number 25, selecting a DN is logical, but don't rule out an offensive lineman in the first round. Ben Johnson also spoke candidly about the uncertainty at left tackle amid Ozzie Trapillo's ruptured patella tendon. And the Bears were recently at Alabama's Pro Day, up and close look at Caden Proctor, one of the top offensive tackles in the draft. Now, while we are talking about defensive tackle or safety in the draft, Courtney Cronin now throws out another possibility as far as drafting a left tackle. Now, and I got to be as open to that as I tell you guys to be open that a safety could be picked in round one, right? Like, we know that Ryan Poles is not against taking whatever player he feels is best available. Best available at a position of need, whichever way that you like to look at that. Like Ryan Poles is not against doing that. So while I know coming into this draft, the common thought, especially with the Bears needing pass rush and they need help in the run defense as well, that defensive line should be the first priority of the Chicago Bears. But again, like I've told you guys many times, do not at all count out the fact that there could be a completely different position that's taken. And, Courtney Cronin is now thrown out. While I've been thinking safety, just looking at the draft board and, the depth of safety that's there in the, while there are some solid safeties later in the draft, you want a starting caliber safety day one that fits perfectly well with Kobe Bryant. Those guys are going to probably go in the first round at number 25, right, if you want to get that. But overall, I'll say this, like, Courtney throws out an interesting wrinkle because while Ozzie Trapillo and the way that Dan Rouchard talked about Ozzie, right, and talked about guys like Darnell Wright, talked about, the guys that are forming the base of this offensive line now and in the future, we know that Ryan Poles isn't against looking at and doing things outside of the box. So left tackle is still a huge position of need for the Chicago Bears. It's a major position of need for the Chicago Bears. Now, while the Bears have re-signed, Braxton Jones, we have that. Theo Benedict still in the mix there as well. Bringing in another body there at left tackle, could not necessarily be the wrong thing to do. It really depends on how they go, right? Like I've said before that if I'm the Chicago Bears and I'm drafting an offensive lineman anywhere in this draft, I wasn't even talking about number 25, but anywhere in this draft, I want to go after somebody who has maybe potential to play guard or tackle. That way, as we're developing things forward, and Joe Tooney, Johnny Jackson, those guys may have to walk away or whatever else it is. You have a guy that you can train and play at multiple positions. Also having depth at multiple positions is a really good thing once everybody's back healthy. So there's a number of different ways that I personally would attack it. But, if the Bears are going to go left tackle in this draft, that is going to throw off so much of what kind of the expectation is and maybe the draft board in a way, right? In some ways when it comes down to it. We have big holes to fill on the defensive side of the ball. We have major roles that need to be filled by starters on the defensive side of the ball. So, with that, that being the thing there, I don't know if I personally would want to see them go left tackle, but at the same route, like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, is that the same way I tell you guys to keep an open mind that safety could very well be what the Bears pick at number 25. I mean, if Ryan Poles sees a tackle that he feels is a can't-miss prospect in this draft and he feels like he has to take them, then so be it. I mean, listen, Andre Trapillo's injury is enough of a concern that he could very well miss the entirety of the 2026 season. And at that point, you're then looking at bringing him back and seeing what he can be once he does come back and ramping himself back up. So if the Bears look at that injury and say, listen, Ozzie has tons of talent. We know what Ozzie's capable of. We saw it last year. We want to see him build off of that. He doesn't allow sacks. But at the same time, this injury is a major concern and could be something that lingers on into even past when he does return. Then maybe you do have to make the best decision for yourself and go a different route and draft a tackle. So we'll see. I won't say that it's likely. Even Courtney Cronin, the way that she presents it, just kind of presents it as a what if, but it's a one that I hadn't talked about at all, and I hadn't really given much thought or credence to, because you look at the needs that we have on the defensive side of the ball, the need for starting caliber talent on the defensive side of the ball, that you just kind of think that that's kind of more naturally inclined with the way that the Bears are going to go, even with the way that Ryan Poles and people have talked. But I guess we shall see. Is the first player going to be taken by the Chicago Bears going to be on the offensive side of the ball and on the line at that? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But with that said, ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller talked about the Chicago Bears and the prospect that's emerging as one of the favorites, according to him, for the Chicago Bears at number 25. Now, keep in mind, Matt Miller was the one that did predict Colston Loveland being the pick by the Chicago Bears. So he says this: after correctly predicting the Bears would draft Colston Loveland last year, I feel less confident in the individual player this time around. But would bet 25 is used on a defensive lineman. Zion Young is a popular name in Chicago, from what I've heard. Now, Ryan Poles, they don't like to release a lot. And some of the things that are floated out sometimes from the Chicago Bears side of things does feel like it's kind of floated out trying to get a feel or throw people off the scent of what the Bears could very well do in the draft. But Zion Young is undoubtedly a player that would be well worth taking at number 25. And that's the thing that makes this whole conversation so interesting and so worth it, is the fact that it's not just people throwing out things that don't make sense for the Chicago Bears. These names all make sense, whether it is Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, whether it is a Zion Young at the defensive side of the ball. Like, all these guys make sense for what the Bears need. And that's what you're trying to look at, is that, you want your moves to make sense, but you also want to be shoring something up. You also want it to be something that actually progresses. Zion Young at 6'5", 262 pounds, you saw what he was able to do in the 40 and the speed that he has there, his ability to contain in the run game and pass protect, all that type of stuff. Like, Zion Young is a full-fledged weapon. And, he projects 11.5 sacks over his collegiate career, 6.5 last year as well. He got better every single year in college. And that's the type of player that you look at and you're like, no, you want to invest in a guy like that. And so if the Bears are going to go edge, now Zion Young could go off the board long before the Chicago Bears even pick, right? It really depends, kind of mixing this with Courtney Cronin's reporting. It really depends on how the edge market falls and how the draft prospects fall at the edge position. And so the Bears are filling everything out. And I think the thing to take away from all of this and any Bears talk in regards to the draft is that what the Chicago Bears are doing really is what they are setting themselves up to not be caught with their pants down if the draft board goes a different way. I think the Bears are casting a wide net. They are looking at players at a lot of different positions, and they're looking at a lot of different ways of the draft can go in rounds 1, 2, and 3, and they want to be prepared for any kind of curveballs that could come from other teams. Trade-ups could happen, right? We saw that happen last year. A team trading up or back in the draft can completely disrupt the intel that you got because now a different team is picking much higher than you initially expected, right? So I just gather that Poles wants to go into this draft with all the options in front of him. And we know the positions that we have to address. We know that, right? We know that defensive tackle, defensive end, safety, maybe linebacker, offensive lineman. Like these are all things that could be on the menu. Wide receiver, which we'll talk about here in a second for another visit that the Chicago Bears set up. But overall, it just comes down to if Zion Young's the guy, right? Let's just say, for example, if he's the guy, okay, you got your edge early. Now, how do you fill out the rest of it? And I expect Poles to have a plan for that. I don't expect it to be just going to wing it. As much as it seemed like that last year, like it really did seem like that with the Bears, and as much as they traded back at the end of that draft last year, after they didn't get a running back, they got Kyle Monangai. And, you look back on that, and it does seem kind of intentional that, with some of the people that the Bears passed up on is that they identified, hey, if these guys, 2-3 guys are off the board, we're just going to go Kyle Monangai, and he's probably going to be there around 6 or 7. And, I know that you can look at that very well and say, well, that had to be some luck, but a good draft is a mix of luck, it's a mix of preparation, and it's also a mix of you just adjusting really well to the way things go, because the draft is all over the place. It can go a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. So, we'll see the way that it goes. But before we get out of this and get into the mailbag, I do want to talk about the guy that the Chicago Bears just set up a top 30 visit, right? We know that the Chicago Bears lost DJ Moore. Olamide Zaccheaus is also a guy that's out of there now. And so now you have Luther Burden, you have Rome Odunze, you brought in Khalif Raymond. And so now the question is are the Chicago Bears going to draft a wide receiver in this draft on day 2, early on day 3, where ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that Ole Miss wide receiver Dejon Stribling will meet with several teams, including the Chicago Bears. Now, we kind of know that, right? Now, Stribling and the Bears did have a top 30 visit last month, right, which already indicates stuff. But the fact that they're having another meeting even after the top 30 visit and they're doubling back, to me, says a lot about the way that they view Dejon Stribling, and the fact that they are really trying to look to see if this kid brings and complements and brings out exactly what we want in our draft room and in our wide receiver room, I should say. And I think that that's the key thing here. When you look at Dejon Stribling and his ability to be inside or outside, that adds to the flexibility that we've already seen that Ben Johnson likes to have on his offense. So you look at Stribling, a guy who played 5 years in college, 2,964 yards in that. He had 800 yards each of the last 2 seasons, an average of 14.7 yards per reception last year, 17 the year before that, 6 touchdowns each of the last 2 years as well. This is a guy that's 6'2", 200 pounds, and he brings a lot of that equal versatility that we've seen that the Chicago Bears want in that wide receiver room. I think he complements Rome Odunze and Luther Burden perfectly. You add Colston Loveland into that, you have now this weaponry for Caleb Williams that's all young, all on a similar timeline, all on reasonable contracts, and so they need to start being connected in that. This is probably going to be a very defensive-heavy draft for the Chicago Bears. But with Stribling projected to be a day 2 or early day 3 pick, I think the Chicago Bears could find a diamond in the rough at that wide receiver position that adds to exactly the way that they like to play. And again, the word of the day is scheme, right? This whole offseason is finding people that schematically fit in with what the Bears are trying to do scheme-wise. Scheme is going to be the thing that separates this team. So Dejon Stribling continues to be a name mentioned around the Chicago Bears, continues to be a name that the Bears have done their research on and continue to meet with. And a second meeting after a top 30 visit usually signals a strong interest from the team that's meeting with that player. And that's not even it was just the Chicago Bears. So let me know down below what you guys think on Dejon Stribling. And if he makes sense for the Chicago Bears team, let me know that down below. With that said, let's move on. It is Friday. That means it is mailbag day here at Chicago Bears Central. We got 3 voicemails we're going to get into. This one's from Darius.
What's happening, fellas? Darius from Dallas, man. I just want to call in and comment on the last episode. We were talking about Caleb Williams' completion percentage, and I get that it is the mark of an elite quarterback, but I just don't think he'll ever reach it realistically, because Caleb's way of protecting the ball is just throwing that motherfucker away. I'm okay with that. I remember Caleb saying that he's going to put the ball where either his guy can get it or nobody can get it. Okay. And, he did really well with interceptions. I don't want to sacrifice his ball security just so we can get to 70%. And maybe he still can do it. I don't know. I don't know what Ben Johnson and a guy like Caleb Williams, as talented as he is, can accomplish. I don't know yet. And none of us do, really. But I'm not that hung up on it. What I would like to see more, let me see the TDs go up. Let me see you get to 4,000 yards. Let me see the TDs go up, because that's what's going to win games for us. I think that's the most important thing. And, as far as the drops, I sort of feel like it's overblown a little bit, and I think people are a little bit harder on Rome Odunze than they need to be. Now, Olamide Zaccheaus can't catch a cold. So, he's just ass, in my opinion, as far as his hands. He's a great athlete and can run some routes, but he can't catch worth a damn. I think a part of it is with the drops. I don't think that it's a lack of talent or anything like that. I think you're just building chemistry with a new quarterback. And Caleb Williams can throw the ball fucking hard, dude. Like, I saw Tom Brady break down that game-winning pass that he threw to DJ. I think it was like a post route in the end zone against Green Bay. And, the weather conditions were windy, and wasn't any other quarterback probably would have threw a duck in those conditions. And he zipped the ball. Like, Caleb has a well above average strong arm, and wide receivers just have to get used to that. So I think a little bit of that, as far as the drops, that's overblown a little bit. I think it's just, young receivers getting used to catching a Caleb Williams ball. I think that's just how it is. And I think that, as far as the completion percentage, if we can get to like 67, 68, man, I'm cool with that. 65 is even cool if we get in touchdowns. So, I think we get a little too analytical sometimes is all I'm trying to say. But let me know what y'all think. Text us up there now.
I think that I get what you're getting at, right? And saying that you're basically saying you don't want Caleb to gamble more, right? But I think that what you're missing in this, Darius, is that if you're saying they're saying they want his completion percentage to go up to 70%, that's not saying let's take riskier throws. That's saying let's take the smarter throws and complete. I think when you look at it, it's really the gimmies, right? Caleb Williams, as much as and you pointed out one of the most amazing plays that he was able to make within the opposite direction of the wind and all that type of stuff, like a lot of quarterbacks can't make that throw. But where Caleb and the wide receivers miss that is some of the gimmies between drops, miscalculations on the throws. It's the gimmies. So with Caleb Williams being able to make those amazing plays, as you pointed out, if you add in just more of the gimmies and take some of those, I think you're going to see that completion percentage go up. So I'm not really worried about the interception percentage going up or how he protects the ball going down in that, because I don't think it's about let's take this riskier throw. It's about let's take the safer throw, and then that's going to rise up your completion percentage pretty there often. So rather than gambling down the field as much, let's take the 5 yards, right? And let's take that a little bit. And I think that's a part of Caleb Williams' game. That on top of the drops, the miscalculations, I think Caleb Williams can get up to that 65, 66, 67 completion percentage. But hey, 70% being the goal for that. And Darius, sometimes you just miss some of the you miss the gimmies. Sometimes trying to think too much a little bit, my boy. My boy called in talking about I don't want the interception rate to go up if they're trying to get the completion percentage. Nigga, what? But all right, let's get into this next one. Just messing with Darius a little bit there. Let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Keys.
Yo, what's the deal, guys? It's your boy Keys, man. Hope all is well with you guys. That being said, let's get to it. So I read an article, right? And it was talking about a certain player. Currently, at the moment, we drafting at 25. And I've made mentions of this to people I've talked to, shooting the shit with you guys. So talk about sports, right? And I said the only player that I would value and trade up for if we were able to get the Bears would be Ruben Bain Jr. Or if it's possible to get Akeem Messidor. Either one of those two guys I would love for the Bears to get. I don't know if we're going to get them, but those are the two guys I see with the pass rush problems that we've had. I think they could come in and be a huge plus for this defense. Either one of them, but mainly Ruben Bain, right? And people look at the measurements, 6'2", 263, 270, however they do it, right? And they say he's too small, they act like the boy got alligator arms. But every time I watched him play in the last 3 years for Miami, especially the last 2 years with having Jason Taylor as his D-line coach, him and Messidor have been a fucking force. They have caused havoc. They have ran through the ACC, and then you've seen what they did in the college football playoffs. Really just stood out and like they were like if Bain had the measurements, he would be number one in my opinion. And if Messidor was 21, 22, he would be top 10. That's just what I think. But if there was a way, and if there was a player that Ryan Poles was able to go and get, and it just came to fruition, the person I would want to go up and trade for is Ruben Bain. Now, I don't know if Poles is going to do that because I know he talks about how he wants to accumulate all these picks and add surpluses. But let's talk about it. In this draft, it's a bunch of starters, right? Bain to me is a star, okay? And what we need on this defense is a star. We got starters, okay, in certain spots. And I think he would be one where if we get him, every time I watch them play, it's like it's watching, in my opinion, without the spin move, it's the same build of the White Free. And he just caused havoc every time you look up. So my question for you guys, if it was possible to go from 25 to say like 11, would you trade up and go get a Ruben Bain? I'm all for it. I don't know if we're going to do it, but he's the one guy, and everybody talking about this bullshit. When it comes to football, just like with Aaron Donald, motherfucker just caused havoc. But let me know what you guys think. Shout y'all up.
I wouldn't hate the Chicago Bears trading up. Like we know that with Ryan Poles, he's not afraid to do those things if it's his target that he can't feel he miss. He feels that it can't miss. But I do think with what Ryan Poles has communicated as far as patience in the draft, they are prioritizing these draft picks. I don't know if they move up or as much as they feel confident in where the board's gonna sit at with this one, mainly because of the contract stuff that the Bears are looking forward to. So I think they want more contracts if they can get the right players. But I wouldn't be surprised if they try to move up. I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to get that done. But Ryan Poles, if he does do it, is going to be a move that's thought about now and in the future on top of that. So we've seen Poles be aggressive about going out and getting the guy before. Now, some of that's been trading down, and so that's a thing. But I wouldn't be surprised no matter what Ryan Poles does, if he identifies a player that he wants, about going and being aggressive about getting that, whoever that ends up being. So great voicemail there, Keys. Let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Vaughn.
What's good, Haize? This is Vaughn, man. In Annapolis, listen to my first episode of full episode, Chicago Bears Central. Love it. I'm going to be a lot more pleasant on this than I am on the Bulls. They just got me hella cynical. But anyway, I'm going to quickly get to, I believe it was a podcast from Monday that you had. Not going to touch the Lawrence thing, but I do want to talk about the slow starts on offense. I believe that this could possibly be remedied or at least helped a little bit if Ben Johnson would kind of create a sense of, controlled chaos early in the game, up-tempo stuff. I think sometimes as offensive coordinators and play callers, sometimes you just need to get out of your own way and sometimes just, put your offense in the position where they feel that sense of urgency. And I think, hopefully year two in the system, maybe they can, do a little bit more of that, create that sense of urgency early on. That tempo seems to really work well for Caleb, and not just Caleb, but the entire offense. At least it did last season. So what are your thoughts on that? Quickly transitioning to the draft. The big question I have, I'm still trying to identify type of players DA wants, type of players Poles will get for him. It's hard to predict a draft, and I'm really into the draft, and so you basically eliminate certain types. So as much as I love Caden McDonald, I love Lee Hooker, are there places on DA's defense for those body types, more or less? Now, Big Bill was kind of the run stuffer and the only one the Bears had this year, but I'm just wondering, are McDonald and our guys like Lee Hooker even fits within DA's what he wants in terms of prototypes? Right now, they don't have a run stuffer on the line, in my opinion, especially with Big Bill being gone. So that's another question I have for you. Do you think Caden McDonald actually fits the type? I'm looking at more like guys like Peter Woods, because he's a type of more of a penetrating D tackle who can also line up at end if you watch his 2024 highlights at Clemson. That kind of reminds me of Shamar Turner a little bit. So, again, Caden McDonald, is he the body type, do you think, or do you think that might possibly eliminate him from contention or from the possibility of being drafted? Thanks a lot. Great show. Bear down.
I think Caden McDonald is the exact type of player Dennis Allen likes. Not even just from a physical makeup, but from a skill set makeup. Keep in mind, it's about scheme. What have we heard so far from the Bears? They want aggressiveness, speed, and violence. Caden McDonald brings a lot of that. And I think he also complements Javon Dexter really well, which as much as Bears fans keep up throwing up doubt about Javon Dexter, it seems like this defense, Dennis Allen and the Bears themselves are very confident in Javon Dexter. It's just about adding a complementary skill set. I think Caden McDonald brings that pretty well. So I think all of that would work well for the Chicago Bears. So I'm not as worried about the Caden McDonald side of it as you are. I think he fits in perfectly well. As far as the offense, I do think a more up-tempo offensive style fits this team. It fits Caleb Williams. I think we saw that. But how you work yourself into that tempo, you have to find that tempo differently against every team, every style of defense. And so you're not going to see the tempo start off fast. I think you're going to see the tempo build. And then once they get comfortable with that tempo and find their place, they're going to try to maintain that throughout the entirety of the game. I think that's kind of the key for the Chicago Bears. I think they can do it. We shall see. But That's going to do it for today's episode. I want to thank you to all the callers, everybody that called in and left a voicemail. You guys are the lifeblood of this show. Appreciate you guys so much on that one. But I need to hear from you guys. Are you going offense or defense at pick number 25? Would you be mad if the Chicago Bears went offensive tackle? And is Zion Young really the guy for the Chicago Bears at pick number 25? Let me know what you guys think on all of that down below. You can drop your comments in the comment section. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. You can also follow us at Shy Bear Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, chicagobearcentral@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.